Once a prosperous family enterprise, Rick Harrison's Pawn Stars is currently collapsing as a result of lawsuits, falsehoods, and scandals. While Corey makes poor decisions, Chumley, the show's comic relief, is discovered in possession of drugs and firearms. The show's reality is revealed, and the family's decline is more dire than you may have imagined. During her recovery from a coma, Rick's own mother, Joanne Harrison, accused him of coercing her into handing over her share of the company. She filed a lawsuit, alleging that she was owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in assets and missing money. Rick blamed external factors and denied everything. The family's name was tarnished by a court battle, but a revelation threatened to ruin everything. Intoxication in public, property damage, and a lawsuit over a damaged RV were among Bygos Harrison's personal problems. A series of poor choices cast doubt on the legitimacy of the transactions in the show. Rick's son took the mayhem to a new level, committing a crime so heinous and awful that he was sentenced to life in prison, just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse. For years, the Empire's reputation has been steadily declining as each scandal, legal action, and treachery erodes what once appeared inviolable. With every scandal, litigation, and betrayal eroding what once appeared untouchable, the Empire was on shaky ground, and the Pawn Stars show the legacy was contaminated. The main character, Corey, descends into inebriated bar brawls, careless actions, and money problems. He continues to smile for the cameras as if nothing had happened, but his rap sheet keeps getting bigger. In actuality, Pawn Stars has evolved into a reality program that is struggling to stay relevant, focusing more on damage control than on history. With phony scenes and inflated costs, the reality show One by One turned into a sensational soap opera. Customers started to doubt the veracity of their appraisals, and the show's credibility was damaged as the appraisers were revealed. Customers became irate and accused the store of fraud, deceptive appraisals, and unethical business practices as a result of the litigation. An engineer named Rick, who had previously worked on Tucker cars, created a one-of-a-kind bike that could sell for between $12,000 and $20,000. But the majority of these motorcycles were destroyed or disappeared off the face of the planet. One of these bikes, owned by Rick's son Chumley, was immaculate, never repainted, and had never been messed with. Everything was made worse by Rick's careless decisions, and Chumley was given a huge bonus of $11,000 in cash. Chumley made the decision to purchase gold teeth for his bike by using his savings to pay a jeweler. Rick attempted to invest in Google or Apple, but Chumley was unimpressed. He made the decision to purchase the gold teeth, showing them off while imagining his flashy smile dancing in his mind. The business found it difficult to bounce back from the negative reaction, and the show's reputation suffered. The theft of a $50,000 bike by Rick's son Chumley severely tarnished the show's reputation. The business's reputation was further damaged by the show's inability to bounce back from the criticism and the ensuing legal action. The protagonist of the tale is Chumley, a man who is currently purchasing a car that he thinks would be a treasure. The vehicle is a quintessential example of a junker's car, complete with pricey wheels and a unique sound system. The car is a money pit, but the seller, who has a lot of cars, wants to sell it for $2,500. The seller thinks the car is worth $11,000 on its own, which raises doubts about his decision-making abilities. The voice of reason, Rick, counters with a $1,000 offer, but Chumley is locked in at $2,000 before anyone can yank him away. The most careless spender at the pawn shop, who had obtained a car he had no business owning, is comparable to this circumstance. Having witnessed his share of financial catastrophes, Rick finds it difficult to maintain composure. Like the most careless spender at the pawn shop, he is locked in at $200. Customs, a store that specialized in making bad ideas worse, is the next destination. A few days later, Chumley reappears with a fool-like smile, ready to reveal his masterpiece spoiler. Having witnessed his share of financial catastrophes, Rick is unable to maintain composure. $2,000 was bad enough, but Chumley has now invested an additional $3,000 for a total of $5,000. The narrative emphasizes the significance of taking into account both the possible outcomes of making such decisions and the possible outcomes of not doing so. The narrative emphasizes the value of exercising caution while making decisions and the repercussions of acting otherwise. The narrative centers on a family business that deals in antiques and unique items. The oldest employee at the shop thinks it the most absurd thing he has ever seen, but Chumley, the owner, is thrilled that the car can bounce up and down on demand. Chumley is not impressed when the oldest member of the shop offers to give the elderly man a ride. The notorious jukebox, purportedly an antique collector's item, is the subject of the following lawsuit. Eager to sell the jukebox, the vendor describes how music enthusiasts would fall for it because it is so rare. But because of its outdated wiring, shattered housing, and hardly functional condition, the jukebox is a nightmare. Chumley is too far gone for Rick, the seller, to persuade him that the bargain is worthwhile. By implying that it might be flipped for $10,000 if the proper buyer finds it, Rick sweetens the pot. Chumley had spent an additional $3,000 on the jukebox by the time everything is said and done. On television, Harrison, a shrewd businessman, transforms a rundown store into an empire of television. Handshakes and word of mouth are two of his most well-known methods of communication. However, the reality of planned, genuine transactions and fabricated haggling is more complicated. In the event that the issue is eventually uncovered, it is not only embarrassing, but also detrimental to one's professional reputation with regard to the individual. Along with the damage that was done to the store, Pawn Stars has been brought to its knees as a result of the situation. Pawn Stars, a well-known tourist destination, relied on the faith that customers had in its brand and reputation in order to accurately evaluate things. However, due to the fact that fears began to emerge that not all genuine things were in fact real, confidence began to decrease. The subsequent events included litigation, disagreements, and public humiliation. The company that was involved in the Turning Point gold coin hoax was one that prominently included Rick Harrison's name in their advertisements in an effort to attempt to persuade others to purchase rare objects that they said were made of gold. Immediately after clients became aware that they had been deceived, the company vanished, leaving behind customers who were irate and with empty wallets. An increasing number of lawsuits were being filed by irate former supporters who had become fervent adversaries of the new administration. It was the last in a series of bombshells that could not be made up. It was the one that had nothing to do with questionable investments or dishonest business methods. That one that resulted in his child being sentenced to incarceration for the rest of his life. Not just for a few months, but for the rest of his entire life. Even if Pawn Stars had been a well-oiled machine that produced excitement out of ordinary transactions, the program was nothing more than a show that had been planned, polished, and edited to give the idea that it was a television program. Despite the fact that illusions are only ephemeral, the actuality, which was much more terrible, was much more miserable. Trust served as the foundation for Rick Harrison's empire, which he went on to destroy one controversy at a time until it was completely eradicated. People who have worked at the store for a significant amount of time shared their experiences and anecdotes regarding how things were actually carried out. These stories featured stage encounters, manipulative sales, and back-row transactions that were more designed for the purpose of providing entertainment value than for the purpose of carrying out legal business operations. After having conversations with workers who had been employed by the company for a considerable amount of time, people who were within the company discovered that the reality show had never been accurate in any way. Pawn Stars was a disaster that led to a deterioration in trust and reputation, in addition to inflicting a significant deal of public shame and legal action. Pawn Stars was a disaster. The conclusion is that Pawn Stars was a total and utter flop.